Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Overthinking. Taimur, how are you doing today?
Doing great, man. I'm here. We're having my morning time with the baby girl. She's she only got to sleep about. So we were meant to start recording at 8 a.m. and normally by like 7 a.m. she's already asleep in here. But she was like quite awake until about 7:40, so I was worried that she might not fall asleep. But she did fall asleep in the end, and so now we're doing a podcast, aren't we? Yep.
Nice.
How
That's
about
very
you?
cute. I'm good. I'm having a bit of a moment that I need some therapy with. So I was
Okay,
hoping you could meet my therapist for this.
great. What's up, man?
Basically, what's the point? Okay, in particular, what is the point on the hustling front?
Yeah.
I feel like we need mags for this. Because, like, we've been doing some annual planning and stuff, and whenever we do annual planning or any kind of planning for the business, I'm always a bit
Mm.
like, what's the goal? What's the point? Like, what's the
Yeah.
point really meaning like, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Um, you know, we'll do a few million in revenue and a couple million in profit this year, and like we did the same last year and the year before and the year before.
Mm.
So it's sort of like, should we have a revenue goal? Should we have a some other kind of goal? What's even the point?
Yeah.
And I feel like, in a way, I feel like I wake up in the morning and I don't have I don't have a reason to grind, basically.
Mm.
I used to have a reason to grind back when I had a day job, because
Yeah.
the reason to grind was the ability to escape the day job.
Yep.
But now that
I'm with
I'm
you.
coasting along in this comfortable thing of basically making the same, taking a title, which is the sort of video I would have made 5 years ago as well, and just sort of talking to a camera and like doing the thing. We make a stupid amount of money from sponsors, and we have a course and stuff. It's almost
Yeah.
like too easy,
Yep.
and it's like I feel like I'm in this. I feel like I'm in a bit of a rut around.
Yeah.
I just have no reason to grind. I don't want to. Do I need a reason to grind? Should I just chill out? But I kind of like, there's a book I bought from a bookshop recently by Chris Guillebeau called The Happiness of Pursuit. I think there's definitely
Okay.
something there around. There is
What is it?
there is profound happiness in pursuing a goal that feels meaningful.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't really have a goal that feels meaningful right now. What do you reckon?
Mm.
What should I do for this?
Okay. Nice. Yeah. That's a good discussion topic. I'm just finding a tweet that I read that I bookmarked, which I thought was really profound and like really spot on. Um, okay. Here we go. Okay, so this is a tweet from Emmett Shear, who was the founder of Twitch TV, and he was for one weekend he was the CEO of OpenAI, when I think after
Oh,
like
right. Okay. Yeah.
Sam was all ousted or something or the other. Okay, so some other guy on Twitter posted about how. Oh yeah, so some other guy on Twitter did a tweet about how in grad school, I think he was doing a maths degree or something. In grad school, he really felt like he maxed out his sort of cognitive ability. Like he really hit a ceiling of like smartness at his subject or whatever. That then became like the bottleneck for him to be able to proceed any further. He was like, okay, I've like, I'm fully maxed out on this. I can't, I'm not going to be better than this at maths or something, or whatever his subject was, electronic engineering or something. And like, it's because I'm just, I just don't have the cognitive horsepower. And he was saying that other people, like no one like granted him this. Everyone else was saying like, oh no, man, you just didn't want it enough. Or like, you just didn't know the right way to study or something like this. Like no one believed him when he was like, look, I'm cognitively maxed out. And that's why that's why I can't sort of really make any more progress on this thing. And then Emmett had a good reply, which I mean, I don't know if this, maybe, I don't know whether this applies to the original guy or not, but I think this is so true. And I see this in so many places and like definitely in my own life. Emmett said, most people have never hit their cognitive ceiling, nor have they hit their effort ceiling. So most people have never actually reached the true limits of their like, you know, call it mental potential, or even the potential of their effort.
Yeah.
The first ceiling most people hit is clarity and consistency of intention. Okay,
Ooh,
and I
nice.
think that is so true. Like I mean, definitely in my own life, I never, I mean, yeah, I never feel like I don't feel like I have ever. I think that the biggest bottleneck is always clarity and consistency of intention, and it feels like that's you're kind of at this place where like you're not, it's not like, oh man, I'm just too dumb to grow the business anymore, or like I'm giving it 24 hours a day and I can't, you've it seems like you've lost the well, maybe the consistency of intention, um, of like, hey,
Yeah,
I really care about getting up and doing this thing. And so
yes,
I thought that was
that's good.
a helpful thing just to like
Yeah,
put some words to it.
no, that is very good. I think that's definitely true, and like the team have noticed this as well. Very like in
Really?
various um, like every quarter or so, I'll sort of either make a radical change or, well, it's not really radical, but like a big change or a small change in the direction of the business based on how I'm feeling or based on like what the most recent book I've read is and things like that. And one thing Gareth said on our latest team retreat, which was a team offsite technically, which was because apparently if it's a team retreat, you can't claim it back as a tax expense, but if it's an offsite, you can. It's a good thing this isn't being recorded. The last thing that Gareth said on our team offsite is that, to be honest, we could make anything work as long as we stick to the plan for long enough to see it work.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was like, yeah, that's very true. We could make anything work as long as we stick to the plan for long enough.
yeah,
But I think sort of plan is downstream of goal, and I often feel like I waver on what the goal even is.
yeah.
Because sometimes I have periods of my life where, like for example, at the start of this year, January, I was living at home in St Albans with nothing to do other than like go to the gym first thing in the morning, grind at work all day. Mimi was away in Pakistan for like some period of this time. There were like builders in the house, and so I was just like completely locked in. And it was the winter, and I was in St Albans, so getting to London was a bit of a faff. And I was like, great, I feel like I have all this excess capacity. Let's grow the business to 10 million in revenue or whatever. And I was like, that felt like I
Yeah.
felt like an arbitrary goal, but like a goal that I was pursuing nonetheless.
Yeah.
And then we did some stuff, and we are like, okay, well, we're probably not going to hit it this year. Maybe we'll hit it next year or whatever, build the infrastructure and stuff. And then I'm kind of realizing that actually, in order to get it to 10 million, I'm going to have to do a bunch of extra work and stuff. And then I'm like, do I really want to be doing that extra work? And it's sort of like when the goal and the plan and the effort required to hit the goal feel like misaligned,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
when I'm
yeah,
like, do I need to be doing this shit? Like, what? It's kind of an arbitrary goal anyway.
yeah.
And somewhat relatedly, I recently joined a squash club here in Hong Kong,
Okay.
and I've kind of set myself a bit of an arbitrary goal to sort of a proximal goal to play for the club squash team, which would require me to
Okay.
really
Yeah.
up my game. And
Yeah.
that would require me to have squash lessons a few times a week and also do a shit ton of like leg days at the gym and lunges and glutes and hamstrings and flexibility and all the leg day
Yeah.
stuff that I don't enjoy. But there's something about that where I feel like, you know what? Yeah, it's arbitrary, but it's kind of nice to have that clarity, at least for now. I don't
Yeah.
the consistency remains to be seen, but the clarity
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
intention of I want to play for the club team. And
Yep.
then once I'm there, I'll worry about do I want to play for like Division One or Division Two or like, working
Yeah.
my way up the ladder. And even
Yep.
though it's arbitrary and meaningless, it still feels like a worthwhile thing to aim for. Knowing that it will require me to do hard things, and knowing
Yep.
that like hard things it will require me to do are generally good for me anyway, because like doing more leg day will probably be good for my life.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I have that as it relates to the business, like this clarity of intention.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely one thing I've noticed with you, and I think after I watched your recent like, your big annual life update video where you talk about like just everything in your life and what you're thinking. I feel like every year you kind of flip flop from like, oh man, you know what? Oh yeah, it seems like once a year you have an epiphany where you're like, you know what? Like I shouldn't be like beholden to the business. I should be able to just do what I want. I need to like release the shackles that I've put myself in, and not really, not care about like doing all this stuff on my calendar. And I'm in charge. Make the business work for me, not me work for the business or something. So about once a year you have that epiphany, and then
Yep.
also about once a year you have the epiphany of like, oh, you know what? I just met like Mr. So and so at whatever conference or something, a retreat or something like that. And he's doing his business is doing XYZ ABC. And you know what? I thought, wow, that'd be really cool if we could get the business to that thing, thingy. And like, yeah, now I think we're going to grow the business, man. And then you kind of, I'd say over the last like 3 years,
Yeah.
you've kind of like flip-flopped between these two things where like there'll be a period of like 6 to 12 months where you're in one mode, and then there'll be a period of like 6 to 12 months where you're in the other mode, and then you'll kind of have the counter epiphany not long afterwards. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, I think it does. It sort of feels like the two things of the pendulum are, I have enough and I want more,
Yeah.
or something like that. An analogy that came to mind the other day, I was chatting to Tintin, one of our team members, about this, around like, it's a bit of a grandiose analogy, so forgive the
All right.
grandiosity of the analogy. But like if you were like the emperor of Rome, and you were like,
Right.
you know what, I've got a good thing going here. Rome is doing well. It's good vibes. We're sort of good culture, good philosophy. We've got
Yep.
Socrates. Was he Roman or was he Greek? I think he was Greek. Whatever.
I
We've
agree.
got the right.
Yeah.
We're doing the plays. But you know what would be really cool? It'd be good to conquer that area
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
like extend ourselves and sort of expand the empire.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then maybe you conquer the thing over there, and then you realize that actually, they're kind of rebelling a bit, and they're not paying taxes. You're like,
Yeah, that was more headache than it was
I,
worth.
I, I had a good thing going when I was just thinking about Rome and like attending the, you know, the whatever the plays and the musicals and the parties. And so you know what? Let's just sort of contract
Colosseum,
back.
the gladiator battles. Yeah, the
Yeah, yeah,
Colosseum.
the Colosseum, all of that jazz. And then like 6 months later, after chilling out and recovering energy from, it's like, you know, last time we made the mistake when trying to conquer those people, and that we didn't tax them enough. So we're going to try again. We're going to conquer those people over there. We're going to tax them more this time because we've learned from the mistakes. And you sort of
Yeah.
extend a bit, and they're like, actually, I had a good thing going with Rome, and sort of this kind of flip flop between expansionism and contractionism around like
Yeah.
I want more versus I have enough.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, a bit of a. Sometimes I flip flop quite significantly. Sometimes it's more like I can see the edges of the spectrum of the flip floppiness, and I'm somewhere in the middle, and I sort of make minor tweaks as things are going, feeling as if I'm always sort of balancing on this
Yeah.
edge. Yeah.
Well, what's usually the thing that makes you do the flip flop? Is it like you meet someone who inspires you to kind of do what they're doing, or you read a book or something?
I think it's actually less that. It's more that. Okay. It's more that so the thing that takes me towards the I want more thing is usually a case of having excess kind of mental energy and thinking,
Right.
what shall I marshal this creative or mental or whatever energy towards? Shall I marshal it towards learning how to draw? Shall I marshal it towards reading philosophy? Shall I marshal it towards joining a raiding guild in World of Warcraft, the latest expansion? You know
Yeah.
what? Actually, if I look at all the various things I could do, honestly, just trying to grow the business actually feels quite. That's the video game that I kind of want to play, rather than playing an actual video game. It's like that's actually quite fun. It's like creative. You get to learn new things, get to speak to cool people. We can grow the business, and then the points that you get for growing the business is like actual money, which can then be cashed in for stuff in the real
Yeah.
world, not just like a sword or something in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And so it becomes like it's almost like I don't know what else to do with all this excess energy, so I may as well grow the business kind of energy, and that
Yeah.
is often twinged with a sort of scarcity around like, well, if I just sort of chill out a bit, there's no guarantee that the YouTube channel will keep growing. There's no guarantee the business will keep on growing. Right now, the sun is shining, so should I also be making hay while the proverbial sun is shining? I was like, okay, growing the business makes more money, makes the bank account more secure, and also is kind of fun. So let's just do that. And that's where I go into the kind of expansionism territory.
Okay.
And then usually the thing that takes me back is recognizing that like en route to the expansionism territory, I have
Do some boring stuff.
I have to do some boring stuff, or I've created the conditions that sort of now have curtailed my free. I've cashed in some freedom for the sake of growing the business, where the outcome of growing the business is to be able to have freedom. So it's like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
there's this sort of circular kind of thing going on there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't the well, with regards to the like make hay while the sun shines thing, isn't one of the good things about being like a YouTuber or whatever that you can just kind of like do whatever you're finding interesting right now in your life and just make videos about it, and people will, people will consume the content. Like, if you decide, okay, I don't, I'm kind of done with the productivity stuff. I made that hay while the sun was shining. Now I'm like, interested in, I don't know, playing squash and reading philosophy or playing World of Warcraft or something. Like, it's not like you'd, it's not like the YouTube would die. It's just like you're doing a new thing and making different kinds of videos. Or does
Well,
that feel too risky?
no, that so
You can't.
there's like there's videos that there's sort of this, imagine a Venn diagram. There's like a circle of videos that get lots of views. And then there is videos that the videos that I'm intrinsically interested in making. And there's not 100% overlap between those things. There's like maybe a 20% overlap between those things.
Okay.
And so, for example, this year in 2024, I kind of leaned more towards videos that I want to make. Whereas last year, I leaned more towards videos that will do well. Because last year I had the goal of like maximizing views so that we could get the book onto the New York Times list or whatever the thing was.
Yeah, yeah.
And this year we have got where our views for the year are down maybe 10-15% compared to what they were last year.
Yeah.
And we were doing a bunch of analysis on this on the channel and stuff. And basically it came down to, well, if we want to get more views, we should just make more videos that are more likely to get views. More videos that quote the audience wants, or that are working on the quote algorithm these days, which is the audience anyway. So it's like, it comes down to the epiphany I had in last year's life update video was, where Aziz Ansari goes up to Frank Ocean at a party and he says, "Hey, Frank Ocean, man, how do you do it, man? You like release songs whenever you feel like it. You drop a new album. You never do any press. You never do any publicity. You're like living the dream, man. Like, how do you do it?" And Frank Ocean's like, "It's easy. You just got to be comfortable making less money. That's all." And Aziz Ansari's like, "Whoa." And I think about that a lot because it's like the price of freedom in this case, making the content that I want to make, or like going pro squash, or like going pro World of Warcraft player. The price of that is actually the money.
Yeah.
Because it's very unlikely that the next thing that I will do will be as monetizable as the thing that I'm currently doing, because the way you make money is, do more of the thing that works. And so that's where kind of, the more money thing also comes into this, all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
what's your, it sounds like it's worth digging into the money thing. If the business is making a couple of mil in profit every year, then presumably, like, I mean, it's not like you want to buy a yacht or something, right? Like, that can fund whatever you possibly care about,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Except maybe buying a house in Hong Kong, but yeah. I don't really care about buying a house in Hong Kong.
Yeah. So yeah, why does it feel like the money sacrifice is worth it? Because if I was like, if I felt like, okay, I'm comfortable financially, let's say I have like a day job or something, and I have a good salary and I'm comfortable financially, and I had the option of taking like a 3 months unpaid leave every year, I'd probably take it. I wouldn't be thinking, well, I'm foregoing some money, to take this 3 months unpaid leave to like travel or sit around or just do some random thing. And I think you would also do the same, right? Like, of course, you'd take the 3 months unpaid leave if you were financially comfortable. And there are people in these positions. I know people who do this kind of thing. So why does your current situation feel different to you? I think maybe the scarcity thing comes into it, where you're like, oh man, like it would be so bad if like the money machine just like stops rotating,
Yeah, I think that is it. it's sort of like, yeah, I think partly I feel like the economics of a YouTuber are similar to the economics of an athlete in that you have a few years to really, you have a few years in your prime. There are almost no YouTubers who like are consistent. Like, there's a life cycle of a YouTuber. There's a rise, a
Yeah.
plateau, and then a sort of fall, as it were. And
Wait,
I
sorry.
kind of,
All right. Sorry about that break, everyone. The baby's gone back to sleep now, so she's fine. Let's see how long that lasts. Okay, so we were talking about the life cycle of a YouTuber. Um, how long have you been doing the YouTube thing now? Like 6 years or 7 years?
7 years now.
Why do you feel like the life cycle is short? It feels like Logan Paul's been doing it for a long time, and Mr. Beast and stuff. Or are those guys too much of outliers?
I think they're too much of outliers. I think it's very rare. Like, you have to constantly be innovating to stay. Well, again, it depends what metric you use. Um, yeah, you do. I think in the world of like personal development as well, there's like Mr. Beast and Logan Paul are working really, really, really hard to maintain their dominance, their ascendancy, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They're like really, really grinding at it. Each year the platform becomes more saturated. Each year the barrier to entry becomes lower and lower. There's also a bit of a life cycle around in the field of personal development, in that an audience may get into it at a certain stage of their life, and then fairly quickly they'll hear all of the things that need to be heard in the space, and
Yep.
will then actually implement them or not, and will get turned off personal development. So there's like a
Yep.
natural churn to the interest of the audience. And as in the early days of my channel, I was almost purely documenting what I was doing, and it was very relatable because I was a student, and there's a ton of students. And then there was like, I've got a day job, and there's tons of people with a day job. And now like what I'm doing is trying to grow the business from 5 million to 10 million, which is immediately like 0.3% of the population of like the US, for example, who are entrepreneurs in that category. And so my own evolution leads to a natural shrinking of the audience, and also the platform dynamics and stuff. I could play the game. I could try and play the game of chasing the views like Mr. Beast and Logan Paul do, not in a derogatory way, but just like I like actually optimizing for views as the number one thing. But that would essentially be, if you want to optimize for views, generally you go broader market, you go more beginner, you skew younger, because the economics and dynamics of YouTube, the platform, favor that sort of thing. So it's just like, again, it comes down to the goal of like, is that what I want? If it is the game I'm playing, then I will, I back myself to be able to play that game. But it's just like, do I want to play that game?
Yeah.
Which then feeds into the money thing around like, okay, well, what's the price of freedom, or the price of being able to actually do what I want?
What is James Clear up to with his life?
James Clear's working on his next book. He writes his newsletter. He mostly spends a lot of time with his kids, takes the kids to school, drops them off each day.
Lame.
Works from like 10 till 3-ish. Only does the stuff that he feels like he wants to do. He does like one speaking gig a month and sort of caps it at that. And is just making absolutely printing cash from his book. His advice on this, because I asked him about this a year ago or so, a few months ago, was draw a box around the lifestyle that you want, and draw a box around the lifestyle that you want, and then within the work box, optimize for profit within that, and kind of do what it takes. But he was like, start lifestyle first, and then kind of optimize for profit within the box, sort of thing.
Let's go back to like the money thing, because obviously you don't really need any more money. you could just like chill on your current money like for the rest of your life if you wanted to.
No.
Like, sure, you wouldn't be able to buy as big a house or something. Like, there'd be some constraints, but like you could very
Yeah.
comfortably just like, you know, rest and rest. Oh, dude, sorry. Okay, I'm actually gonna give the baby away now. Sorry. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so on the money front, let's say you just decided to like completely peace out. You just like shut down the business, whatever savings, whatever money the business has in the bank right now, etc. That's it. Like, what would you be worried about? Like would it be like, okay, this would like limit the kind of house I'd be able to buy? Would it be like, okay, then, I'd probably have to like start doing some budgeting? Like practically speaking,
Yeah.
what seems worrying to you if you decided, okay, the amount of money I have today is like the amount of money I would ever have, and I have to survive on this for the rest of my life?
Okay, good question. What would be worrying about that is I would need to downgrade the house that we're renting because
Okay.
that's probably unsustainable over the long term. I would have to start thinking about like kids' school fees and stuff. We're leaning towards homeschooling anyway and things, but like, you know,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. That is about it. I would stop flying business class if I'm going to places.
Okay. Yeah.
Upgrade the MacBook every few years rather than every 2 years. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Okay. Sure. That kind of stuff.
that kind of stuff.
Okay. So I mean, that's for example, yeah, having to like downsize the house and stuff like this. That does seem like a significant thing you'd be giving up. Um, Obviously, in like the grand scheme of things, it's not. But like, yeah, on the sort of personal level, yeah, I can see why that feels like, okay, ideally I wouldn't have to do that. Okay, so then so the business makes like, let's say 2 million a year in profit every year right now. And let's say you decided, okay, I'm gonna like just make the videos I want to make, do the podcasts I want to do. And if the audience likes it, great. If not, like, I'm not too fussed. Let's say you did that, and that meant that the business now makes one mil a year in profit. Does
Sure.
that does that seem does that seem like a reasonable assumption?
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm pretty sure for at least the next few years we could do 1 million a year in profit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then if that's the case, then you then you don't have to like downsize your house
Yeah,
and
true.
all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it would just be a case of being comfortable going
So
from
the,
2 to 1 or yeah.
So then what's the worry at that point? So like let's say you go down that path. When you think about it, what is it like, oh man, I wouldn't be able to do that, or like, oh, I'd have to like figure this thing out or something,
Yeah, good
what
question.
does your mind go to?
I think my mind goes back to the scarcity thing around like, yeah, it's like this weird thing of like, yeah, but what if it all comes crumbling down?
What if what comes crumbling down?
Well, yeah, that's a question. What am I
Because
what am I
the
thinking?
baseline is like you can have your comfortable life and in a slightly smaller apartment or something.
Yeah.
And then if you continue the business, then you can just keep doing all the stuff you're doing. Is the worry that like that million a year in profit would just be unsustainable and it would slowly go down to
Yeah.
zero or something?
Yeah, well, so I mean, but if I really think about it, if I free in a world where I only did the things I wanted to do, we would still fairly comfortably make 1 million in profit.
Yeah.
And the extra excess energy, I'm sure I would marshal towards
Yeah,
things
I'm
that
sure you
were
like
able to,
yeah,
yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
like, your
yeah,
voice pal or whatever other projects you're doing, like
yeah,
probably that, it's going to be something business related.
yeah, or like writing more books and things like
Yeah, yeah.
really
Like what? Yeah. I mean,
just over time.
if you
Yeah,
really need, if you were really strapped for cash, you could just do like a few speaking gigs a year. You know, if it came down to.
yeah. I mean, if I was really strapped for cash, I could just get a job being an in-house YouTuber at a startup run by a friend or something. Like, yeah, there's lots and lots of options.
So it seems like the baseline really is at least 1 million a year in profit for the business, whether even if you're just kind of doing what you enjoy. And to me, it seems unlikely that that would like go to zero, because there's kind of evergreen stuff in your
Yeah.
business that will just kind of keep going on. Personally, I think like audiences do actually quite like it when, like, I don't know, the creator just kind of does what they want and stuff. And like, yeah, it's probably a bit of a hit to the view count initially, but then like, I think people do like that stuff, and so you'll still make money from it and all of that kind of thing. So it seems like it seems like the baseline is this like 1 million a year in profit, regardless of what you're doing. And then if you're really just optimizing for the money, then maybe you can get that to 2 to 5 or something. And if you're not, then I mean, there's uncertainty. Like, it seems like 1 million is sort of the floor, but like, it could lead you to a point where you're doing something that turns out to be massively lucrative in a very scalable way or something. It
Yeah.
might not. It might be something in the middle, but like, it seems low risk.
Yeah. But all this comes down to the question, back to the question of like, what's the goal?
Yeah. So the question of like, okay, let's say I'm happy with a meager 1 million a year in profit for the business to fund
Yeah.
my life. You know, let's say I can, undergo the the spiritual development necessary to find contentment in that. Okay, let's say you
Yeah.
get there one day.
Yeah. Sure.
So now the question is like, okay, now what do you do? Is that right?
Yeah.
Or are there clear things that you would do? Do you think?
Yeah, so whenever I think of this, like I often think of it in the sense of like, let's say I had 100 mil in the bank, and like now I'm really like, there's no excuse for not for feeling the money scarcity, etc., etc. And I had all the time and money in the world. How would I choose to spend my time?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is always not that different from what I'm currently doing, because that's always been, well, always, I say always, that's often been like the guiding North Star
Yeah.
for like how I spend my time. Yeah, I wake up, spend the first 4 hours of 4 to 5 hours of my day like learning something new and maybe making a video about it if I think it's interesting.
Sorry, dude, I have to go get the
And like,
baby. Give me 1 sec. Sorry. Right. Sorry about that, gang. Um, where were we?
you're
So,
asking what I would do in that world where like a million a year is the
yeah.
base or something to that effect.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like you really like this. Oh, if you won the lottery, what would you do? Question, and you always say
Mm.
like, oh yeah, I think I'd broadly still do what I'm currently doing. I like making
Yeah.
videos. I like teaching. Um, you know, I like writing. I like writing books about whatever I'm interested in. That's what you always say.
Yes. But here's the thing. The thing with that is that it's a very like, it's an infinite game kind of thing. Like, yeah, this is, I would just broadly keep on doing the thing that I'm currently doing. But that doesn't, it's not an inspiring or motivational goal for me. Like, it's not a thing that makes me excited to get out of bed in the morning, being like, ooh, yay, I get to do the work stuff. It's more like, I can do whatever I want, cool. Like, I guess, what's something I want to learn today? I am getting into AI agents and stuff and looking into that. Or like, you know what? Let me read the actual original Meditations by Marcus Aurelius rather than all the derivatives of it. Or all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh yeah, do I feel like filming a video today? Nah, I don't really have to. Nah, yeah, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. Okay, it kind of depends what I feel like. And it's sort of this sort of floating kind of existence, which is fine. And it's that, it's like fine. But I also feel like I want something to work to, I want something to pursue that's not simply the status quo. Because that is the status quo. I can, in fact, wake up, do whatever I want, make videos whenever I feel like it. Business would be totally fine. Maybe we'd take a hit in profit, but like whatevs. But yeah, it's just that, yeah, there's something about the status quo nature of that goal that makes it feel not motivating. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So it sounds like you it feels like you can get over the like scarcity mindset, like taking a hit on the profit mindset. It seems like you could get over that if you had some um some motivating vision that was really kind of, a fire inside of you, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think over time I have broadly gotten over the scarcity around money type thing. Having had this epiphany for the last like few years, and always sort of, yeah, the more often I have this realization, the more people I speak to who sort of also have that realization at various different levels of wealth. It's yeah, it's not about the money. It's about
But
the
in
doing
the
the
absence
meaningful
of
goal.
the
Yeah.
absence of the fire inside you, it's like, well, I guess I could play video games, or I could try and grow the business. So I should probably
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
and grow the
Exactly.
business.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, nice. Okay, yeah, that I think that's a good point of clarity that we've arrived at. Um, yeah, the fire thing. I definitely know what you mean, because there's been, like, in the early days of Causal, um, the extent to which I had the fire inside of me was like quite different to the extent to which I've had the fire inside of me in the last sort of couple of years, for example.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess like one question that I'm thinking about is the like is the fire even necessary? Is or like my like objectively when I had the fire, well, when I had the fire inside of me, I had a less balanced life. I was going to work, coming home, grinding on the YouTube channel, loving it for the most part, and waking up and sort of just doing the same thing over and over again, living off takeaways, almost never going to the gym, not in a relationship, didn't have a kid on the way, etc., etc.
yeah,
But I had that fire of motivation inside of me that was sort of
yeah,
pursuing this, building this thing up from the ground up,
yeah.
and that was nice.
But the fire is better. It's better than anything else. It's honestly, it's like it's literally better than anything else.
It's like when I was 14 and started playing World of Warcraft for the first time, the fire to get to level
Yeah,
70
dude.
when you get
Yeah,
home from school and you can't wait to like
yeah,
log back in and like
yeah,
learn the new spell and get to level 19 and level 20 and you're like, yeah, I got that quest. That quest gave me 12 silver. And by the time you get to level 80, 12 silver is like, it's not even something you would even vaguely think about. But similar in the early days of the channel, like going from 61 to 62 subscribers, it's like, whoa, it's working.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
like such a an
yeah.
addictive
It's
kind
it's
of,
an intoxicating feeling. It's really like, yeah, it's magical. But I mean, you can have that and still like have a bit more of a balanced life, right? Like you can have that and still go to the gym and play squash and like, I
yeah,
don't know, hang out with your kid or something.
yeah.
I think
It's
that's
like
possible.
what's the thing that creates the fire?
Yeah, but you need the fire basically. I mean, one thing that often provides the fire for people is having having some kind of ideology that they want to push in the world. Um, like once like people make a bunch of money, then they're like, okay, I think the world should be a certain way. Let me start like, you know, lobbying the government and, becoming Trump's right-hand man and like let me start doing all of this kind of stuff to like shape the world into my vision of the good uh, kind of thing. But it doesn't seem like you're sort of it doesn't seem like you're sort of motivated by anything remotely like that.
Yeah, not for now. Yeah, I'm not that interested in political or philosophical lobbying.
Yeah.
I may become interested in that at some point, but like right now at this state, in this season of life, it doesn't feel like a
Yeah.
particularly inspiring goal.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I wonder if, so people who do things like marathons and like take gym super seriously often say that the infinite goal is not enough to motivate you. It's important to have like finite games to play within the context of that.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is why
yeah.
I'll sign up to the marathon that's happening 3 months from now to be like, okay, there is this thing that I can see this destination site and I'm working towards the thing, and I can forget about the thing, but now I have a reason to work towards the thing. Whereas
Yeah.
the general thing around like, hey, oh, I'm reading Outlive, and so when I'm 85, I'll be able to do squats with my grandchildren. Like, that, you know, that is fundamentally why I would like to take care of my health. But that does not get me to do leg day. Whereas, man, I want to improve my ability to lunge so that I can actually win more squash games against the over 40s. That's way more motivating because it's like a right now rather than a I'd like to do squats with my grandkids when I'm 85 type situation. So I wonder if it's in finding a shorter term, like the way I think about goal setting, and is in terms of like quarterly quests, finding like a quarterly quest to actually work towards, like the next book or like the next whatever, the next launch, the next voice pal, whatever, and not thinking too hard about like what's the grander goal here, or like what's the thing. It's just like, hey, broadly playing the infinite game, and I'm going to create these little quests for myself each quarter and work towards those.
I don't know. I don't think that's sustainable because I think that's kind of what you've been doing over the last few years. And like at some point you're going to have the existential crisis again of like, well, I'm just setting these arbitrary quarterly quests. I think you do need to like find some fire. You can't just, I think it's completely unsustainable to just try and like manufacture some like fake structure to push yourself.
Yeah, because I do have the existential crisis about once a quarter.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
terms of like, yeah. In particular, as it relates to like quarterly planning, where it's like, all right, cool, what are we doing next quarter? Well,
yeah.
who cares? What does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah, so I
What
don't think that's sustainable. I do think you need to
do you
find
have a
something.
fire? Like, what's your fire, if any?
For me, I would say these days the thing that I'm sort of like really actively interested in and kind of fired up to like spend time on when I get to is just well, I have my sort of ideological vision that I'd like to push into the world, which is roughly, just to roughly sketch it out. I feel like we're past sort of peak secular materialism, and I think there's an openness to spirituality and religion
Yeah,
in for people for whom there wasn't this openness, say in the last 10 to 30 years or something.
yeah.
And so my kind of ideological agenda that I'm sort of working on is I want Islam to be a live option on the table for people, primarily in the West, because that's kind of the context I'm in, as part of this kind of general openness to religion and spirituality that I think wasn't there in, let's say, like the sort of 2010s to 2025 or like 2000 to 2025. So this is the thing that I'm kind of quite motivated by, doing lots of reading around. I need to start doing more writing around it. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, what's my output going to be towards this? But I feel pretty fired up about that. I feel like, okay, this is like, this is something I feel like I can contribute to. I'm in a good position to contribute towards this, and like this seems like a very meaningful thing to do. So that's kind of the thing I'm pretty fired up about. On the work front, I feel like just in a good position to be able to make a bunch of money over the next few years if we can make causal succeed and kind of, set the causal thing up really well to just kind of go on its own. And then maybe in a few years, I'll have some other businessy, worky idea to do.
Okay. So it sounds like, yeah, the fire is coming from this sort of side project of the religion spirituality game.
Yeah, I definitely feel fired up about that.
Okay.
But I think, one thing that's important, I think, is I feel like you've got to have some kind of community, like kind of, if it was just like, yeah, I feel like for all of these things, they're kind of sustained and made better by like having a community of people around that also care about that thing. And so in this book that I've been reading, After Virtue by Alistair McIntyre, one of the things that he talks about is about how when we, well, one of the points that's I thought was quite interesting is that he talks about the idea of a practice with a capital P, which is like kind of like a group project. It's like something you do with some other people. And the special thing about a practice is that there are goods that are internal to the practice. So, when you play chess, the like the game of like playing excellent chess is like internal to chess. You can't get it while making YouTube videos. And then there are a bunch of external goods, like if you play chess really well, people will like think you're a cool guy and you can make some money. And these are external goods which you could get through other means. You could be a YouTuber and make money, and people think you're a cool guy. But the thing about one of the important things about a practice is that there are some internal goods to that practice that you can't really get anywhere else. And then there are sort of institutions that kind of promote that practice. But the trouble with institutions is that they're kind of necessarily have to care about external goods. So whenever you have an institution that wants to like promote something, the institution is going to also have to care about making money, for example, and care about PR. The institution is going to have to care about all of these other things. And so institutions are a little bit dangerous, and you kind of have to be kind of wary of that and keep a check on that. But it seems like right now, you're kind of purely pursuing these external goods. It's like the stuff that you're getting from your business, or like from doing the business stuff, you could get through other means. There's not like a unique itch that it's scratching that's like non-fungible. It's like, okay, I could do this, I could make these kinds of videos and make money, or I could make those kinds of videos and make money. And it's really hard to like get fired up because these things are all kind of fungible. It's like, okay, I can kind of grow revenue in this way or that way or something like that. Whereas if you have something truly internal to what you're doing that you can't get anywhere else, that like scratches the right itch, and if you have like a community around you that kind of enable, support that, etc., then that's usually pretty good.
Yeah, the closest thing I think to an internal good that comes from this business is like the itch that it scratches is the desire to teach and like help people build a life they love and all that jazz. But I guess I've never really had a community of people around me who also care about that particularly. I think when I had the fire in the early days in the first few years of the business, the fire was for the external good of like, hey, I can make money.
Yep.
The fire was not really for the internal joy and satisfaction of teaching. That was like a nice side effect, but it was like a money making endeavor first. Now that the money making endeavorness, now that the desire to make more money is no longer the fire. Yeah, I guess it's about finding a goal that finding a goal that I care enough about that where the pursuit of that goal has intrinsic value rather than just instrumental value.
But it's less about the goal. I think framing it in terms of a goal is still very is kind of almost like inherently externalizing or instrumentalizing. Maybe one way to think about that's kind of why I mentioned this practice thing, where like it's not really about achieving a goal, it's about engaging in a practice, and that sort of letting you participate in these internal goods that you can't get anywhere else. But right now it seems like you're kind of, your brain is always trying to frame it in terms of like an optimization problem, where it's like, okay, you have this goal, and then you like, figure out the right actions to achieve that goal or whatever. And I think that is part of it. And I think at the mic, it's kind of what you were saying, where like you need that kind of general big picture, motivating thing. And once you have that, then it's like, okay, practically speaking, what's my output going to be? What am I trying to produce here? Whatever. And I think goals have their place there. But right now, yeah, I just don't know if you should be thinking about goals right now. I don't think you're there yet. I think you need to find the kind of broader magnetic vision for yourself, and then the goals are kind of, they come after that.
Yeah, I had this similar chat with my CEO coach like 2 days ago, and a phrase that he sort of randomly threw out as well was magnetic goal. Like, what's the magnetic goal? The thing that feels like it's pulling you towards it, rather than that you are pushing
Yeah,
towards it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just like, my homework from the session was to figure out what that is, and I'm like, yeah, I actually don't know. I don't know what that magnetic
What,
vision is. The thing
you
that I
do a lot of
care.
journaling. Well, what kind of stuff do you journal about? What kind of insights have you mined from that? Are you
A
still
lot
doing a
of
lot of
it,
journaling?
yeah, but like a lot of it is.
Is it more micro level of like, hey, this is what I should be doing on this particular project that I'm doing
No,
this week or something?
it is more macro level. Like increasingly, or about once a quarter, the journaling is trying to answer this question of like, what's the purpose? What's the goal? What's the
Okay.
vision? What's the
Yeah,
anything?
yeah.
And I try and get at it from different kind of angles. Though, what would I do if I had 100 million in the bank? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? If I wasn't allowed to do what I'm currently doing, like what are the things I might do, especially if I wasn't concerned about money or what other people think of me? Like all of these sorts of things. And I have never really managed to get beyond the thing of like, honestly, I really enjoy helping people build a life they love, and I like self-help content and helping people in that kind of way, and I prefer doing it in real life. So I like doing talks and seminars and stuff. I like writing books, or at least coming up with the ideas for books. I like the video stuff to an extent. Like, it's all the same sort of stuff. I like the idea of making software. We're already doing that. Yeah, it just all kind of gets at the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's always part of me that's like, well, increase like, and that's fine and sustains it for a long time. But then when it comes to things like annual planning for the business, where everyone in the team was like, bro, what's the goal? I'm like, oh, okay, now I really need to have enough clarity on this to stay consistent with this for
Yeah.
enough time to see anything work.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things about the kind of the fire is that it doesn't really feel like it's something you've like when you really feel that fire, it doesn't really feel like something you're choosing. It feels like, well, I have to do this thing. Like either like no one else is going to do it, so I have to do this thing, or like this thing is just like so clear, there's no thinking required here. This is just so obviously like the thing I have to do, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, one thing that
can
I
you
was thinking
can
about the
you
other day
can
was
you
like,
imagine anything feeling like that where you feel like, look, I no one else in the world is like gonna do this thing. Like this thing needs to be done. I'm the only guy in the world who can do this or something. Maybe not in such a grandiose way, but like, this thing needs to be done, and like I'm in a great position to do this, and I kind of have to do this now.
I can't imagine anything that would fit that category.
Mhm.
So maybe that bar is almost too high. There are things like, like what's a change I really want to see in the world. It's like, an idea I've been toying with for absolutely ages, because it's the thing that pretty much everyone in my audience wants, is like a roadmap for how to quit your job and do what you love, or that sort of stuff. Like, what's the 2.0 version of the 4-hour work week, adapted for 2025? That to me is like an idea that I keep on circling around and keep on answering people's questions around and stuff. And that feels like an interesting idea for a future book. Yeah, there's stuff around that, but again, it's not like I'm not the only person in the world, or anywhere close to the only person in the world who can speak to that.
Sure, maybe that was kind of quite extreme, but like,
Yeah, it's like broad overarching vision. Um, And I wonder if it is just because when I do this sort of thinking, the only answer I've really come up with is the whole like helping people build a life they love through like self-help content broadly. Maybe it is just that. That is the vision, and it's just about being comfortable that like that is the vision and finding a way to. Because like, well, when I do talks and stuff in real life, and or people come up to me and say, "Oh my God, you changed my life," or all that kind of stuff. That's when I really feel the
Yeah.
feel that particular vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when or like I'm doing a talk and I'm coming up with a framework and drawing on a whiteboard and people are like whoa and they're like asking questions about it afterwards and stuff like there's something that's the thing. um and like videos are a bit of a pale imitation of that thing because it's like speaking to an inanimate object, and in a way books as well, like the creation of a book and then people like and that book having impact on people, it's quite like far removed. Whereas the sort of speaking to someone face to face and being able to help them out with whatever they're struggling with as it relates to quitting their job or whatever the thing might be, that feels very like aligned. And so maybe it's about doing more of that.
Well,
Don't know.
yeah, it sounds like the people side is quite important for you.
Yeah, I think the connection, the people, that sort of thing. Don't know.
I mean, right now, how what's your kind of like human interaction around all of this stuff? I guess as your team, and then you're not really. It's basically just your team. Like you're working with your team on like growing the business kind of thing.
Yeah, team and then mentors, coaches, like business partners, that sort of thing. Izzy as well is sort of on a similar sort of mission, the sort of self-help, personal development-y, content-y arm. So she and I talk about that a lot. Um, and like when other creator or entrepreneurs, like we were hanging out with Simon Squibb this morning, and he's coming over on Tuesday to record some stuff together and things like, he also does like content on how to start businesses. So
Yeah.
when people in a similar sphere are passing through town, we'll inevitably hang out, and that's always fun. Like Sile Bloom was here a couple of weeks ago. That was sick. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
level
Yeah.
of attraction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of stuff makes a big difference, man. Yeah, I think it's hard to even if you like. I mean, maybe this helping people build the life they want thing. Maybe that is the fire, but it's just like it's so depressing doing that on a laptop all day that like you're kind of you know that's
Yeah,
one possibility. Yeah.
yeah. I guess even when, because even when living in London and having the team in the office a lot and having friends coming to co-work and things, there was still always a big part of me that was like, what's the point of all of this? Like,
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
what's it all in service of, other than sort of making numbers on a bank account go up or making follower accounts go up or whatever the thing might be.
Yeah.
Maybe I need another ayahuasca trip. It's been about a year since the last one.
Really. What were the insights from the last one?
Well, the insights, like I was asking a fairly similar question. I was having a bit of a crisis of meaning around the work stuff.
Yeah.
Like everything else in life, I was like, great, that's fine. But like in particular on the work thing, the thing that I allegedly do for 8 hours a day, like, whoa,
Yeah.
what's the point? The insight there was basically that like a sort of playful thing around you can basically do whatever you want. Like, you know, everything is dripping with meaning. Everything is meaningful just because it
Yeah.
is. That's the way the universe is unfolding. And so like don't take it too seriously. Just sort of chill the fuck out and just do the things and it'll
Okay.
work out.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the journey. Yeah. That kind
Okay.
of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
But it sounds like you need more than that.
maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm searching for Yeah, maybe it is just a. I was chatting to Simon Screw about it this morning, and like in a world where his view, because he's like 50 and has started loads of businesses and is friends with all these entrepreneur type people. He's always like, yeah, when someone has too many options, it's very hard to stay motivated
Yeah.
because the brain is always like, well, we could do this
Yeah.
or this or this. We'll start that business,
Yeah.
build that
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so in
Yeah.
a way, there is value in just sort of removing choice and being just, you know what, and sort of actually deciding to just pursue one particular direction
Yeah.
and then just sticking with it, knowing that, hey, there's all these other options, but like this is
There's
the
definitely
thing.
value in that, but it can't be manufactured. And actually, I have a bunch of like startup friends who are like founders, and it's quite a common situation to be where you don't quite have enough clarity and consistency of intention,
Yeah.
and then you feel the FOMO about like, oh man, maybe I should be doing some AI thing, like, I keep hearing about this stuff, and like, there's no way to just like manufacture. You can't just manufacture the intention. You can't just say like, no, I'm just going to tell myself that I've just got to stick to it for 2 years or whatever. You know, there's got to be something more real underneath. I think it's too hard to manufacture it.
Oh, so what's the thing, man? What should my thing be?
Wait, so when you were in London, it
Yeah.
sounded like, you did have community around you to like in when you were like doing your work stuff. So you had like your team and then, various like there'd always be someone passing through town and you could
Yeah.
hang out with them and stuff. But even then you were like feeling a bit empty about it.
Yes. Once I'd achieved the freedom that I was aspiring for
Yeah.
back in the day when I was building the channel, I didn't have any community around me of other people doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had enough of a fire to be able to sort of
Yeah,
self
of like the
motivate.
financial freedom thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I got to the financial freedom thing and realized that like actually, I mean, you don't need that much money to be able to buy an iPhone every other year and get the latest MacBook Pro when there's enough of a leap. It's like, I don't really spend money on anything else. There's only so many Lululemon t-shirts one can buy before one runs out of Lululemon t-shirts to buy.
Yeah.
At that point, it really started to feel like, shit, there's a chapter in the 4 Hour Workweek at the end of it called Filling the Void, where he's like, okay, at the point where you achieve your 4 Hour Workweek, you will realize that there is this black hole inside that needs to be
Yeah, yeah,
filled.
yeah. Yeah.
And his thing is like, after lots of soul searching, I've realized that there are two things that fill the black hole, and that is growth and contribution. So if you need to be growing in some way and contributing in some way.
Yeah.
I think right now I do feel the contribution. Maybe it's the growth that I don't feel. I feel like I've kind of, yeah,
Stagnated.
there's no real area in which I'm actively growing. And like, yeah, I'm learning music theory and stuff and trying to get better at the guitar, but it doesn't hit the same because it's not like growing in the work camp for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is that. I think it's that void of meaning post financial freedom,
Yeah.
which lots of my founder friends who've sold companies have also had. Of like, okay,
What do you do now?
I've got the bag now,
Yeah.
and I didn't have an earn out period or whatever, or I finished my earn out period and I've already
Yeah,
got the
yeah.
bag.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go on holiday. Let's cure, pay off the mortgage on parents' house, and then like, shit, what do I do now? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just filling the void, man.
Yeah, I mean,
Some people say kids fill that void, but I've also heard that like kids add meaning to life, but don't fill the void of like meaningful work, which like always needs to be filled with like something.
yeah. Yeah, I would say for me, obviously I'm still pretty new to the kid thing. Maybe I already said this on the podcast, but it does not feel like, oh, well, obviously this kid is my whole life and I don't need anything else in my life anymore. It's definitely not that. Maybe it's closer to that for Lucia. But even then, probably at some point, I'd be like, okay, I kind of want some,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like, oh, she's so cute.
Yeah. Our friend Paul Miller has a new book out. Good work.
Oh, yeah, have you read it? I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, I'm like 75% through. It's good. It's good.
Isn't that isn't this book all about like your current predicament
Yeah,
about
it
like
literally is. And he literally, in chapter 12, it's titled Leaving Money on the Table. And he cites the video I made last year where I had the epiphany that you should leave money on the
oh
table
really?
for the pursuit of
I
good
mean,
work.
what's his solution? What's his solution to like how someone can unplug from the matrix and pursue these internal goods?
Yeah, I mean, so he's got a listicle at the back of the book that sort of summarizes the book, which is very handy. Like item 9.9 on the list is solve the puzzle of good work. The puzzle of good work is always in flux and requires constant tinkering, reflection, and patience. Once you identify the core activities of your good work, the journey is just beginning. Look for ways to experiment with how and when you work. Think beyond the workday or work week towards work months, work years, and even work decades. Become aware of supporting activities that may fuel your curiosity, passion, and creativity, but remember not to mistake them for your good work itself. Mastering this puzzle also requires discipline. Try to create good enough work that can help fund your journey without draining your energy, and if it helps you keep your journey alive, don't avoid bad work completely. Solving the puzzle is about always trying to find your way back to your good work, no matter how long you've been disconnected. Yeah. I mean, he basically says that, yeah, this is a... Find the stuff that brings you alive, and then like figure out a way to pursue it most of the time, but like and figure out the supporting activities that help you facilitate that for a living. And I think for me, whenever I've done any, like it comes down to learning stuff and building stuff and teaching stuff, and like just doing that. But again, the thing, yeah, I feel like I'm missing that sort of longer term goal, which would create this fire. And I just genuinely cannot think of any compelling long term goals or missions or whatever beyond what I've already got. I can think of lots of like short term projects of like, yeah, let's get VoicePal to whatever MRR, or let's launch our new mastermind, or let's write the next book. But it's that longer term thing.
I mean, a lot of
I'd be
rich
curious to
people.
hear if anyone's at this point in the episode, like, do you have that longer term thing that sort of that, in a way, like life vision or work vision that is lighting the fire sustainably?
I mean, a lot of rich people turn to philanthropy. I think once you get enough money, you're like, okay, I have the yacht or whatever. There's a lot of problems out there that I can help fix. Now
Yeah.
let's try and do that.
Yeah, when a few years ago, I was circling around this question and had a couple of like, Will McCaskill on the pod and Ben Todd and some
Oh yeah.
people at 80,000 hours and stuff, who I was, and this was like 3 years ago, or yeah, 3 years ago, trying to answer this exact question of like, well, what is all of this in service of? And a big part of it was like, in the whole like effective altruism thing, it's like, there is the spreadsheet part of it, but then there's also the, what is a problem in the world? What is a problem area that you intrinsically care about? And for Lucia, that problem area might be something like, I don't know, animal cruelty, yeah, or like the suffering of humans, or for some people it's the suffering of non-human animals. For some people it's like AI or existential risk, or any of this sort of stuff. And I was always like, I don't really know what specific problem area I really care about to be able to like be like, oh, this is the thing that I really want to go down. Who knows? Anyway, should we call it a day there? We can I can continue
we
to.
had quite a long sesh. Yeah, I don't think I've been of much help in the therapy session. But
We're good. The point is not to find the answers, but simply to discuss the questions or something like that. If anyone has the answer, then do please leave a comment down below. I'd be very keen to hear it.
nice. All right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.